Now, I don't know if it's the COVID effect or what, but time seems to be passing really fast these days. It's been more than 3 years since the Proton X70 has been launched here in Malaysia, and even the CKD version has been launched more than 2 years ago. So it's just about time for a mid-life cycle update, and well, look at what we have here. By the time you're watching this video, the car would have already been launched. So I'll stick the link down below in the description box so you can go and check out all of the detailed information about this car. But the main highlight of this mid-cycle update, or as Proton calls it, the X70 MC, is actually the new 1.5 TGDi engine underneath the bonnet. So for those keeping track, it is the same engine as the X50. So that means there's going to be a drop in performance. On today's drive, we'll actually be finding out how much that actually matters, and we'll talk about how it actually feels to drive. Now, it's going to be a pretty short drive. I think in total the driving time is only going to be about 1 hour or so per driver. And on top of that, the weather is also not with us today. But I'll try my best to talk you through it, and we'll see what we can experience today. Alright, so we have just set off from the Proton COE and we are stuck in a jam. But that is okay because it gives us the chance to actually experience the car in a traffic jam where, let's be honest, as Malaysians, that is where we live every single day. But in terms of NVH performance, there really isn't that much of the infamous 3-cylinder rattling or noise in this car, on the inside at least, because in terms of noise, it's really barely audible. But most importantly, there's no rattling or vibrations or any sort. There is a slight vibration that you can kind of feel from the seat, but it's not anything jarring. But at least that's when the car is brand new. So it'll be interesting to see how it performs 2-3 years or even 5 years down the line. But Proton isn't that concerned almost at all, because the same engine has been used across the entire Geely group on multiple models over the years, starting from 2018. There are over 750,000 cars on the roads today that are using the same engine, and it's also gone through over 12 million kilometers of extreme weather testing. So in terms of real-world durability tests, I think it should be quite well established that the engine can last. In terms of performance, because it is a downsizing after all, there is a slight performance downgrade, dropping around 7 horsepower to now 177 horsepower and 255 Newton meters of torque, which is about 45 lower than before. And for those keeping track, again, this is the same output as the X50 in the flagship variant, which is the higher power output. There is a slight performance drop, but from what Proton says is they are really not that concerned. They still calls it a similar performance level, but on the flip side, you do get a 7% improvement in terms of fuel consumption. And in terms of driving feel, at least in the city driving conditions, you really don't feel that much in terms of power difference. And because it's also paired to the same 7-speed DCT gearbox, it really doesn't feel all that difference in terms of power delivery compared to its 1.8 litre TGDi engine. And I wouldn't call it underpowered at all. In fact, Proton actually says that even with the smaller engine, the new X70 is still one of the most powerful model among its competitors, coming in just behind the Honda CR-V's 1.5 litre turbocharged engine. And just like before, the driving experience on the X70 is actually very smooth, very comfortable. It doesn't do anything too outrageous. It doesn't try to punch you in the back when you try to accelerate. But power is there, and the driving feel is just very serene and relaxing. And in terms of engine noise, I think it's actually a lot quieter than the X50. So we are now around a hilly part of the road, around the Puncak Alam area. Well, I can report that even on a steeper uphill, the car doesn't really struggle at all to deliver power. And the drop of 45 Newton meters of torque really doesn't feel like that much, because in start-stop traffic or even on steeper uphills when you are going at a lower speed, the engine still feels quite punchy. So in actual driving circumstances, I really wouldn't notice that much of a difference. So in terms of 0 to 100 figures, the engine downsizing has actually meant that the 0 to 100 time has been dropped from previously 9.5 seconds down to 9.8 seconds now. To be honest, not a huge change by any margin, and I think that's also partly because the new engine is actually more than 40 kilograms lighter than the previous 1.8 TGDi, and it sort of cancels out a bit of the lack of power in terms of the power to weight balance, and in theory it should also really help a bit with the handling of the car. Now unfortunately we don't really have the roads to test it out today because it's quite a short drive for us to really just get a feel of how the 1.5 TGDi engine feels in the X70. But the Proton guys have assured us that there's going to be a longer drive in the future for us to really experience the car in full. So keep a lookout for that, because we'll definitely be having more coverage on the new X70 MC. And actually even now on the highway, the new 1.5 TGDi engine doesn't feel out of breath even when you are holding a higher speed. At the national speed limit, it's actually still very quiet. And looking at the RPM meter over here, holding the national speed limit, your RPM actually falls below the 2000 mark. So driving the 2022 Proton X70 on long highway journeys actually can be quite relaxing, because you don't hear the engine noise and you don't feel any sort of rattling in the engine. And when you need to overtake, the downsized engine still doesn't really feel underpowered at all. And I think for most people, if you're choosing between a 1.8 TGDi premium variant against the 1.5 TGDi variant, which is what we're driving today, well, to be honest, I think most people will be fine with the 1.5. So underneath the bonnet here, everything is pretty much covered up, and you only see the engine, which is covered also by a foam engine cover. It's actually vibrating quite a lot, but that is only at the engine itself. So if you look at this, so over here is vibrating, but when you move over here, it's completely steady. So if you are wondering how the engine bay differs between the 1.5 litre TGDi and the 1.8 litre TGDi, well, this is the new 1.5 litre TGDi engine bay, and this is the old 1.8 litre TGDi engine bay. Really not that much of a difference, and everything is basically wrapped up anyway. There is one key difference, however, and that is the engine cover itself. So previously on the 1.8 litre version, this thing here is a hard plastic, and you can hear it. But on the new 1.5 litre TGDi model, this thing here is actually soft, as we mentioned just now. So the main purpose of this foam cover here, it actually helps with the noise levels of the engine. And as we mentioned just now during the drive, it really feels quite quiet in the engine, and this here is one of the main contributors to it. And the foam engine cover is actually a brand new addition, because on the X50 over here, which shares the same engine, this here is still a completely hard plastic engine cover. Alright, so now we are back at the Proton COE, and since they have a display car over here, I figured I'll just bring you through some of the minor aesthetic differences to help you pick out which is the new MC update. Starting from the front here, the main differences are only in terms of your trim color. Actually, it's the same throughout the entire body, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, the front grille here now gets a gloss black finish to the infinite weave grille pattern over here, instead of the previous sort of gunmetal grey color. And the same gloss black is also applied to the bottom trim over here, and that's basically all there is to in front over here. The same black is also applied to the wing mirror covers, and on the premium variant you also get the new 19-inch wheels, which are the same as the special edition model, if you remember that. And I think the new wheels actually does give the X70 a slightly sportier appearance overall. Moving over to the back here, again the main difference is only the blacked out trim over here instead of the gunmetal grey from the previous pre-facelift model. And at the bottom of the bumper here, again, is also the gloss black finish. Otherwise, the rest of the car is completely unchanged, including the interior. You still get the same infotainment display, you still get the same digital instrument cluster, and the seats are also still the same brown Napa leather, which are very comfortable. But yeah, that's about all of the changes on the new 2022 X70 MC. And again, the main highlight here is just the engine, which will be offered across the board on all variants. And on the range-topping premium variant, you also get to choose between this if you want a more fuel-efficient drive, or if you want a little bit more performance, you can still go for the 1.8 TGDi engine from before. But honestly, after driving it for today, I don't see that much of a performance difference between the two. Alright, so that's about it for our very short media preview drive of the new X70 MC today. And hopefully that's enough for you to get a sort of rough idea of how the new 1.5 litre TGDi engine feels like on the X70. And as we said earlier, there's going to be a longer drive in the future, so of course keep a lookout for that. And if you want more information on the new Proton X70 MC, check out the link in the description box below, and I'll see you in the next one.